Alright, what's up everybody? Make America grow again. Let's do it, alright? So how's everyone doing today? Can you even hear me? Is my mic on? What's going on in the world? I am starting a new project here called Stack.farm. If you want to learn how to grow your own food in your own house, then you need to join the ultimate personal farming community, home farming community. Stack.farm. You could learn how to build this dope system you see behind me. I'm so excited for this system. You have no idea. I don't know, 6 years, dozens of failed indoor farming experiments. This, a dozen successful ones, semi-successful, you would say. Ooh. This is by far the best system I've ever designed in my entire life. I'm nerding out. I'm looking at about, what is it, 1/8 of an inch in water tolerance, water level tolerance. If your home is level, or the surface you put it on is level, and you follow this design, god damn those keto cookies. This is the most affordable system I've ever made. I think it's going to be super productive based on everything I've ever, all my trials and errors. Based on really $500K in research and development. Over 3 ventures, 6 years, all the clients, all the capital raised was $500,000 that went into building systems. And I was always designing them, I was always engineering them, but doing it for commercial growers with greedy partners is the worst. Stack.farm is about equipping families like yours, like mine, with a nutrient-dense, food-safe, food security protocol. It really is about providing the nutrients we need to function at our highest, at our peak performance. You can get all sorts of nootropics, you can get supplements, but nothing beats the biologically produced living nutrients that are found in indoor farmed plants. So I've extracted the mechanism of aquaponics, and I've developed and isolated it, and I've developed a protocol framework for designing systems for any given space and any reasonable crop output. So right now, I'm starting at the simplest, and we're going to work our way up to more complicated stuff. All bootstrapped. So I spent certainly under $1,000 on that system, but I did a lot of R&D. I've never designed with those trays. I've never built an indoor farm with those lights, with that pump, with that reservoir, with that shelving, in this form factor. So there's a lot of little things I had to do. You get to skip them all and just get the goods, always free at stack.farm/library. All my manuals and stuff are in there. You can learn how to do aquaponics. So we're going to get into aquaponics later, but I think I made a deal with my wife. We're going to do that in a garage because I do a lot of R&D, and then I pass on, I distill, synthesize the learnings to the community, and hopefully they will start doing the same. But I spill the most water. I spill the water so you guys don't have to. I cut my fingers so you guys don't have to. I screw up drilling so you guys don't have to. And so, for instance, I pick out the parts so you guys don't have to. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it's a pain in the ass. The fun part is growing. If you are constantly breaking something to get it incrementally better, you have this it's just a kind of a pain in the ass process, and it can get discouraging, and it's lonely, and it's all these things, but it's deeply gratifying. But I would say the way this is going to be the most useful is if people could just grow their own food. Regardless, you early adopters are going to be more interested in the design methodology. So I'm going to try to teach everything I've learned through trial and error. basic tenet of the system behind me though is it runs off of commercial off the shelf parts. It uses these 10-20 flats. They're roughly 10 inches by 20 inches, and they are a standard in the commercial hydroponics industry. So they're the cheapest you can get for something that fits. I've been growing on paper towels, so those are super affordable. I mean, the inputs. Let me show you what I'm dealing with here. So those are the paper towels I'm using. 7th generation recycled paper towels. This is the medium I'm trying to use for everything. So I've germinated seedlings before using paper towels, like to grow plants out, but I've never grown full plants out of them. So we're gonna have to figure out if that's doable. I'm gonna test with the other, what I would say is the optimal medium, but it can get a little pricey. I just like the idea of being able to make everything for your home farm, from local sources yourself, really. Anytime you have to, once you get the equipment in place, once you have to use this or that every time, I effectively want to cut the hydroponics store out of the equation. They're very expensive, and they're pain in the butt to get to. They're not that common. Yeah, so I bought, if anyone's done aquaponics or really aquaponics, but this is made for gardening, or hobbyist fish. It's a freshwater testing kit for aquariums and maybe ponds, right? It's maybe for the more serious people, but this measures pH, ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. And I'm going to put fish in there, so I want to make sure they're healthy and happy. I've also bought a manual, like under 20 bucks from Amazon. It's another drop tester for oxygen, dissolved oxygen. I have figured out a way to incorporate Venturis into the system, which is it's a method of injecting ambient air into a liquid, into a pipe. And so people use it in fish farming to boost their dissolved oxygen in the water for their fish without having to get a bigger oxygen air pump. So utilizing your water pump that you already have, moving water to get a little bit more oxygen into your system. And we're going to, what would you say? We're going to capitalize on that physics mechanism to inject ambient air into your system to get into the plant roots so that your plants can grow. And then when there's fish, it'll help to a certain point, but it's limited by the size of your pump. So what I'm trying to do is get oxygen, ideal plant conditions in there without a heavy, air pump. So as you can hear, it's pretty quiet, Anyway, so that's being tested, and I got a bunch of microgreens in there that are being tested. I'm gonna take those to my buddies at a cafe and see what they would pay for them per tray, weigh it out, share that information with members, and so you can start your own microgreen side business to hopefully fund your home farm. That's my idea. If you could take a couple trays somewhere, why not? It could turn into a business for people, but I am slow to get back into the commercial side of things because it's a pain in the ass. I've been burned by so many partners, so many times, lost my shirt, literally, literally, a couple times, and I just want to have fun. I want everybody to be able to have fun, grow their own food, not go broke doing it, make a little bit of money, and then decide if they want to do it for profit. The goal, I think, my vision has always been on-site farming, so that chefs, instead of buying it from an intermediary, the system, the processes will get so simple one day. They are right now, but someday will get so simple that anybody can pick up a little manual, look at a 3-minute video, whatever, maybe not even have to look at the instructions, and just start growing their own microgreens on site and then into other greens as well. And so that methodology, that philosophy of like on-site mass adoption of on-site farming is what I want to get to with stack farming, and it has to be funded by the community. So I'm charging $9 a month for some sort of membership access. I don't actually know what's in there yet, but we're going to find some sort of value proposition that balances so we can self-fund this thing and we don't have to rely on venture capitalists to get us the molds and the plastic and the software and all the things that are going to go into making this simpler for everybody to use. So this is community funded. I'm devoting my time to this. I'm sharing everything for free. And I think like answers and something where my time is more needed or bandwidth is limited, we'll have to charge for it. But we need that recurring revenue. That's the business model I'm trying to launch here. We're going to figure it out together. It's going to be dope. The community is going to be the best community on earth for home farming, but it's also going to be all free. At a certain point, when you want to start buying equipment, I think that's when you'll start getting charged. So if you want to learn how to grow this, build a system for yourself for free, stack.farm. Man, so I got microgreens going in there, salad mix, microgreen mix. I got shoots, pea shoots, and wheatgrass. The bottom you can see isn't actually lit yet, so it's got wheatgrass. And I thought something interesting happened the other day when I was germinating. I accidentally germinated an extra tray in a video I made about how to germinate using paper towels, microgreens, and shoots and sprouts using through the paper towels. And I was burned out from last week. I got an insane work week this week, and I got to really show up. You know what I mean? I have to show up. I have to be really, I have to lead very definitively this week because we have to close a deal and we have to make everyone happy, and it's a big deal, and there's a lot on the line. Gonna get it done. It's gonna be intense. Pinnacle of my career so far, a local maximum, hopefully. And so I wanted to go out of town for the weekend, so we went to a little cottage, just outside the city here of Charlotte. And my seeds, though, were germinating. I popped them the night before, maybe, somewhere around there, a day or less. And then we had to go out of town, and they got to sit for at least 2 days. So I'm like, crap, I got to keep them moist. So I put a little bit of water in the bottom tray, and the bottom tray is empty and just holds your seed stack. And then there's a top tray that's also empty that keeps the moisture in. And a little bit of water is good on the bottom so that the moisture rises and there's maximum humidity inside your seed stack. Well, I added a little too much water and I put it up there on top of my system, and there's just ever so slight skew to the shelving, and so maybe a third or a quarter of my tray, of my bottommost tray, only everything else popped perfectly. The bottommost tray, the last quarter here, was soaking in water too much, and you'll see an interesting pattern of stunted germination from one end all the way to the next, where you see on this side ideal germination of these wheatgrass seeds. And if you can notice here, these are barely popping out. By the time these get out, these guys will always be taller. These guys on this end will never catch up to the growth of these guys in their lifespan. And their stunted growth will forever, their stunted germination will forever limit the yield of their full-size plants, given the whole tray's harvested in one day. And so this, my friends, I was trying to explain to my daughter, is what happens to humans. Shitty, mean, angry, broke humans are born most often in shit initial conditions. They're not germinated properly. By the time they get anywhere, the people that are germinated properly are born, gestated, you would say, right, are way ahead of them. And this isn't a race thing. It's a social thing. It's an economic thing, really, right? And so initial conditions impact the GDP of a nation. If there's not enough nutrients to the baby at the first 1,000 days, that person will earn less money in their entire lifetime. and that can affect the GDP of a country. And we're all just seeds, people. All just seeds. That doesn't mean you gotta be nice to violent people. Sometimes you gotta stay away from people because they're bad people now, and sadly, they came from shit conditions, and so it's hard to what are you supposed to do in the moment, right? So go across the street, avoid them. That's fine, but it's a social issue too. Um, I want to show what I'm growing with here. So I haven't used this yet, and I'd be interested to know what people think about it. This is going to run the system, fertilize the system. Vermiterra, organic soil amendment. Earthworm casting tea. Woo! Hey, don't do what I just did, okay? Never stick your nose into the lid of a chemical bottle. This is earthworm casting, but this could have, if this was a pH up, a pH down, I could have burned my nostrils and my sinuses. I could, if it's something stronger, you can end up in the hospital. So do this, okay? Woo wee! I don't know if I can use that in here. Holy shit, that smells. I think it smells great. I have a feeling my wife is not gonna agree. Oh, fuck me. What do I do? This is the juice, though, man. This is the juice. You need this. Nothing ever works the way you want it to. So, I'm going to try it. We're going to see how bad it stinks. Alternative that I've used before, that I traditionally have used, is, what was it? It's like liquid seaweed. That barely smells at all. And it has the micronutrients you want, but this is like liquid gold. Soil drench or foliar spray. That's another thing. It's not meant for hydroponic use, so they don't tell you exactly. For vegetables, mix 6 to 7 ounces of tea per gallon. Apply once per week? Good googly moogly. That's a lot. For vegetables, mix 3 ounces of tea per gallon of water. Apply once every 2 weeks. That's a lot. 3 ounces. This whole thing is 1 quart. Of course, it doesn't tell you. Or it says 0.95 liters. How many ounces in a quart? Fuck. Anyway, another experiment. My poor wife. Another experiment. I'm gonna max out O2 in that water. That's gonna be pretty dope. And yeah, I just couldn't be happier. Everything is like coming along. It's coming along. So, what is going on in the world today? U.S. stocks fall as trade tensions with China intensify. Hey man, Trump has a strong economy at his back, and he's using that social capital of the American people, his voters, as base to wage economic war with China. I think we've won the war, but based on Chinese, what would you call them? Concessions. But Trump is trying to strong arm them a little too much, I think. Tariff threats pose challenge for China's Xi to keep talks on track. Man, Trump is no nonsense. They have a picture of Putin. Putin punches above his weight. They literally have a picture of him on a TV screen as their main image. Russian president's global strategy keeps Moscow's tentacles in enough places that the Kremlin is ensured a seat at every table that matters. He is one tough son of a bitch. You've got to give Vladimir Putin his due. The man knows how to play a weak hand well. With relatively little investment, the Russian leader is expanding his toehold in the Western Hemisphere and potentially getting access to giant oil and uranium supplies by backing a dictator in Venezuela. With relatively little investment, he has expanded his base of operations in the Middle East by propping up a dictator in Syria and by trying to send some sophisticated Russian military equipment into Turkey. For the latter effect, he'd actually turn a profit. Russians, as a culture, are so good. They make so much from so little. I mean, it's just an ingenious culture. Rivals vie for mastery over America's hottest oil field. Google nears a long-tipped limit on tracking cookies. Google is set to unveil a new way to limit the use of browser tracking cookies, a move that could strengthen the search giant's advertising dominance and deal a blow to other digital marketing companies. I mean, everybody in that industry uses Google Tag Manager anyway, so. Iran poised to breach parts of nuclear agreement, Europeans warn. Huh? European diplomats warned that Iran is preparing to abandon parts of a landmark nuclear deal in response to new U.S. sanctions, a step that risks inflaming tensions after the Trump administration dispatched warships to the Persian Gulf. Yeah, so we got some ships, some planes chilling off the coast of Iran, man. Bridgewater co-CEO is leaving the world's largest hedge fund. Oh, will she survive? House panel to vote on holding Barr in contempt. Man, he's getting his ass kicked over there. Homeowners fault government for Hurricane Harvey damage. Probably. Job advice you wish you knew how to give. Trump versus the horses. Derby debate goes presidential. Wow. Going presidential is now the same as going viral. So, I'm never trying to be a fearmonger, but the more uncertainty in the world, the more you need to have your own food security protocol. Have seeds. I mean, we're not going to see the roving bands of Venezuelan kill gangs in America, thank God, because everyone's got a fucking gun here, which is the good side of it. Can't have a bunch of Antifa fucks rolling through the streets on their stupid little hipster motorcycles, intimidating you, and then, 1 in 10 is a violent psychopath because they'll get their asses shot. Instead, though, there's a lot of frothiness, as they would say, in the stock market. This is why I want to produce my own food. It takes care of disaster scenarios. So that's done. That's table stakes when you have your own farm. But more importantly, you can make some super hyper nutritious food, which is really interesting. And I want to start supplementing my diet with live living, what would you call them, vitamins and minerals. So the idea is, from the literature anyway, that I've read, if you grow food well, so that the plant is as healthy as possible, its immune system will protect it from pests, and you don't need as much, if any, pesticides and so on. But the healthier the plant is, the more nutritious it is. And nature has this amazing magical processes most likely, that ensure that the vitamins and nutrients in plants are far more bioavailable than eating them raw. So they're in the right proportion, they're in the right arrangement, they're in the right, what you would call maybe, ionization, or they're more bioavailable in general, right? The healthier a piece of fruit or vegetable is, the more nutrients are inside, and by de facto, what's the phrase? By the virtue of eating a raw piece of healthy food, plant or animal, you get more nutrients into your bloodstream, into your cells. If you take vitamins, it's much harder to get the right arrangement, the right spectrum of everything you need, and the right configuration for the average person to be able to absorb everything properly. And so just putting vitamin C supplements in your milk doesn't make the vitamin C absorb into your body and eventually become part of your bone structure. If you're, it's different for everything, but the pH of the drink affects the pH of your blood, and the drink affect what kind of chemicals can be absorbed, what kind of reactions are taking place. A lot of times catalysts are needed for certain chemical reactions, and so especially ones that nature that your body wants. And so you'll need X molecules of potassium to process Y molecules of, to even uptake Y molecules of, calcium, whatever it is, right? You should look at Dr. Rhonda Patrick's work on that. Not all things are created equal. But you and I don't need to have PhDs in medical science to do the research to find stuff that's healthy for you. We have experts like Rhonda Patrick. We just need to grow the best goddamn food possible. Make America grow again, baby. The better your food, the healthier the plant or animal is, the more nutrients are produced in a bioavailable format for your body to take in. End of the story. You go hunting, that food is more nutritious than factory farm. You grow in the backyard, that food is more nutritious than stuff grown and trucked in. It's just impossible. Now what we're doing is taking that to a new level, where our plants and soon animals, they're living in like day spas. I'm engineering their environment to be hyper, what would you call it? Hyper efficient, hyper effective, hyper nourishing to them, so that they become nutritional, hyper nutritious, and then you can absorb as many nutrients as possible. A simple example is microgreens. The reason people love microgreens is because if you just ate the seed, you don't get, because of our blood chemistry and biomechanisms and everything, because of our biology, humans can't absorb all the nutrients in a raw seed. Oftentimes we have to cook it, oftentimes we have to grind it up so that it's easily, a powdered form, it's easily digestible, more easily digestible. But the science goes, or the theory goes, that when you germinate a plant, well, everything the plant needs to grow to 2 weeks or so is in the seed itself. It's a little nutrient pack for the seed. So the seed, the plant, converts that little packet of, and you see the seed shrivel up, the casing shrivel up as the nutrients are used to grow. I think usually it's about 2 weeks or a week, 10 days to 14 days. Its first little leaves, so that it can start taking in sunlight and converting oxygen and CO2 into growth and CO2, and then use that energy to pick up nutrients from the soil around it and its roots. But it has its own little bit. So people like to grow those seedlings out to what they call microgreens, and then when you eat them, the plant has converted this nutrient-dense material in its seed into bioavailable nutrients via its leaves and stalk. And that's why if you have microgreen, that's why microgreens are so flavorful, because the nutrient density, the essential oils are very dense, very high, given its tiny little volume and weight. So if you eat a microgreen carrot, it tastes like carrots. Beets, basil, whatever it is. That's why chefs love them. And so flavor is a proxy for oil. Oil is a sum of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals present in there. If you've ever grown cannabis or been around cannabis growing, the oilier it is, the more aromatic it is, the higher it gets you, right? The stronger, the more potent it is as well. It's the same, generally speaking, it's the same mechanisms, or it's the same principle. So we're trying to grow the most delicious aromatic plants and animals one day as we possibly can. And you've ever opened up an egg from a hen fresh, it's deep, dark yellow, versus an egg from the grocery store. And that goes into the whole supply chain of America. We got this enormous landmass with tons of people spread out across multiple large cities, and feeding them as a motherfucker. So we got 315 million people we're trying to feed every day, just in America. Well, the way our cities have been set up, there's these grocery stores. They're cheaper to put one large grocery store for a larger, community than 10 small grocery stores split out against them. And maybe they go from a tiny grocery store making 1% profit on its tens of thousands, if not $100,000 worth of inventory, to making 2 to 3% profit if it's a mega store, to 6 or 7 if it's like top of the line Whole Foods. That's all the profit Whole Foods makes, is 6 or 7%, and that's like primo. You can't get that. That's the luxury market, right? So it's a profit losing process, grocery stores, and Anyway, to get your food there, it has to not only be able to be trucked thousands of miles, hundreds of miles, but it has to be able to sit on that shelf for like a week so that someone can come in and buy it. So shelf stability and logistics are what drives the U.S. grocery retail, food retail industry. That's why there's so much boxed and packaged foods, because you got to get it from wherever, and then most of it doesn't come from America. We're shipping in a shit ton of great food, and it has to travel halfway across the world. So when people say, "Oh, packaged food," hey man, invent a faster boat. Oh, and make sure that boat can carry 100,000 tons, or else get the fuck out of here, because we're not gonna feed 7 billion people with your backyard farm, with your CSA. Oh, you want to feed everyone for $20 a month for your local CSA? Okay, ship your box across the planet and tell me how many people it feeds. All right? It's a very, very, very tricky problem, and it takes a lot of people working 24/7 all across the world to feed us every fucking day, 3 times a day. Some people 5 times a day. So hippies need to back the fuck off, okay? It's not that simple. It's not simple at all. God damn it, this coffee's strong. So by the time it's harvested and it enters this complex supply chain, whatever the food is, fish, animal, plants, eggs, veggies, strawberries, whatever it is, as soon as it's cut from its nutrient source and it begins getting shipped to the local retailer and the consumer, it then has to, it can only, how do I say it? It still needs to sit on the shelf for as long as possible. So you want your shipping time to be as low as possible, and then you want your shelf life to be as long as possible. In the end, it has to survive X number of days to be bought and then to be repurchased by the distributor and the retailer. So you can't pick your strawberries at peak ripeness, because then they would go bad in like 3 days. You're never gonna sell them. So especially if you're trying to get cheap strawberries, because if you're getting any strawberries at a reasonable price, you're paying for migrant labor. If you want cheap food, especially organic food that's softer typically and needs more touch points with humans, you're paying for illegal labor, okay? And if you want a living wage, you better pay 2 times as much for your strawberries and everything, okay? If you thought Whole Foods was expensive now, wait till $15 an hour is the legal minimum wage. Sadly, this is hurting poor people. Now, every company needs to make a profit to get investors to pay for updates and reinvestment in the company and expansion and all the stuff that goes into keeping an operation going. Well, how much of that profit margin? You know, at a certain point, it's already a subsidized industry, so it's like, fuck, man. It's not easy. It's a pickle. It's a pickle, we call it. So you can do all that shit, or you can grow your own, right? Now, I'm not saying we can grow strawberries today, but I'm going to get there. I have some ingenious, you know what? I'm going to draw them off camera, just so I remember. I have an ingenious design, for a system that is low light intensity and will grow stuff faster, bigger, and more nutritiously than ever before. Now, how do I get there? I need to hire engineers. Well, let's be real, okay? I'm going to have a minimal staff at Stack Farm. I'm going to partner with several strategic partners, distribution, manufacturing, so on and so forth, some secret stuff, so we can get products to market faster at scale. So right now, the beauty is this is a membership site, free membership site. You can learn how to build your own with parts that are freely available off Amazon.com. Because I want as many people growing as possible. I want the plastic to be as cheap as fucking possible. Farming should be dirt cheap and completely customizable. I mean, if it's not both those things, then you're fucked up. Because what's the point? I don't want a system that only grows lettuce, only grows herbs, only grows whatever. Can't change it up. Have no modularity, right? On the other hand, I don't want to get a goddamn PhD. I don't want you learning water treatment engineering and chemistry to know how to design these things. So I'm baking all that stuff into the designs so you don't have to worry about it. And you'll just know it just works. So pretty stoked. Pretty stoked. Should I do more? No. We're gonna call it a day, and then maybe I'll do some close camera work and put those on the website. If you want to learn about plumbing, electrical, water, chemistry, that stuff in detail, then stack.farm/join. I don't know. Look for the button. I gotta figure all that stuff out. Thank you, everybody. Happy farming. Make America grow again!